Tell the people who you are.
Okay. Um, I'm Emily Armstrong,
Okay. What? Tell the people who you really are.
who I really am. I am a super smart, strong, independent, tattooed woman. Extremely loyal. Love my family. Most of all, I don't have like this flashy lifestyle everybody thinks that I do. I'm pretty boring. I'm just am. And I'm a survivor of domestic violence.
Tell me more about that.
It's, I think it was always hard for me to be who I am as a person, like who people have always seen me to be and know me to be. The strong lady that takes no shit from anybody. You know, back when I was young, like fight at the drop of a dime, like always stick up for my friends. You know, I was always the underdog. So it was hard for me to watch people be bullied. And so to go from being that person to be someone that was so controlled and beat down and broken as a person was so hard to admit. It was such a shameful process to go through. Still to this day, I have people ask me, like, you of all people, like us knowing who you are, like, how could this ever have happened to you? Like, how could you let this happen to you? And I would say that it doesn't start overnight. It sure wasn't like that. It started so slowly. And I'll use this reference and people may get upset and, you know, tweet bad things about me, but get in line because everybody has bad hater things to say about me. But I feel like he groomed me like almost like a child molester would groom his victim. Gains the trust, gives the compliments, buys you things, takes you nice places, makes you feel comfortable, and then starts to test the waters. And it's things that even in my own mind that I was like, that's not right, you know. And in my gut, my true instinct that I've always felt so proud of to have, I let these things continually happen and stack up in my mind like, that's probably not right either, you know. But on the other hand, hey, all these great things were happening. He was such a likable person, you know. He had a certain charm about him that, you know, come to find out later it was like a motive almost, you know, to gain a trust, not only for my friends, my circle, my family. I always thought that it was so strange that he was like a loner. He didn't come with a family. He didn't come with tons of friends. He basically came with like one friend, two friends maybe. And, you know, my friends became his friends. And he just kind of like weaseled his way right into everything that I had going on in my life. And when I got divorced, right before I met him, I had bounced around several times. I'd lived with my mom for 2 or 3 months. I had actually lived with my ex-brother-in-law for about 6 months. I lived with my best friend when I met him. And he was just like a little lost puppy. No place to live. No friends, like no support system, which all should have been red flags. All should have been. But, because I have some sort of like caring heart, I was like, oh, I feel sorry for this person. And so then my sister got divorced, and she was living in this huge house, and she was working 2 jobs. And she had a daughter who at the time was probably about 7. So moved in with her, helped her pay some bills, worked out for me. And then when we finally decided we were going to get our own place, which that process was, I guess, a lot more stressful, and he seemed very angry then. Should have been another red flag. So when we moved in, it was about 30 days after that we were alone. Weren't living with other people, weren't under the watchful eye of anyone. It happened for the first time. And 30 days in, should be what I finally felt like in the first time in 2 years. I was finally had like a stable living environment. I was finally on my own with my own stuff, trying to start this relationship. And at a time where it should have been great, you move in, you're doing your own things together, and you're trying to make daily routines and all of that. I just remember being so shocked, I guess, was my very first reaction. And then once he'd hit me like once that night, and we just got in this physical altercation, and I was like, I'm gonna whoop this dude's ass. I'm gonna try everything I can to fight him. And I did, and I remember being just angry and violent and doing everything I could to fight back. And I couldn't. He was stronger than me. And I guess for lack of better terms, this was his normal. He knew exactly what he was doing. And at the time, I had no idea what he was doing. And I remember the first time was just as bad as it was the last time before I left. There was times where it escalated, but I remember the next day, I felt like I had literally been in the fight of my life. I was sore from head to toe. I could hardly move. I felt like I had been hit by a bus. And I felt like I was stuck because, less than 30 days when I had made this move, I felt like my life had been so unstable, and I had, touched on the past 2 years. I had touched on, every place that I could have went to stay. I had been there. And so to go right back, it wasn't necessarily failure, but I felt like I couldn't tell people, my mom and what exactly was going on. I didn't even know what exactly was going on. And I, remember all the I'm sorries. It will never happen again. Gifts. And the whole time that we lived like in that high rise, it was like a living hell. And that was unfortunately, the beginning of the next like 5 years of my life.
Stop.
So I think it was February of that year. His ex-wife had reached out to me, and she had sent me like this huge letter, and it was basically like I can say it was a very erratic reach out. I know that because now looking back and what it must have felt like to be in her shoes at the time, it had to have been extremely intense. She went through every single thing that I went through, even worse, with a toddler. But she reached out to me, and she desperately was trying to warn me. And at the time, like I believed every nasty, ridiculous thing that he had to say about her, which I'm sure at this point he's had every single chance to say the same exact thing about me. And I don't care. I don't care. The only thing that I know about this man is that if his mouth is open, lies are just consistently falling out of it. So anything that he has to say about anyone is probably just a whole bunch of bullshit. Now looking back, I wish I would have listened to her like my head was on fire. She did something, she tried to do something for me because she did not want me, even though she didn't know me at all. She didn't want me to have to go through what she did for years. And I didn't, and I only have myself to blame for that. Oddly enough, she's like, now she's one of my very best friends, and I love and adore her. Just 2 seconds.
Okay. Take your time.
It's probably one of the weirdest things to share between friends, but we have some very strange, like, unspoken bond where he made us hate each other, despise each other. But really what he was doing was he was trying to cover his tracks. So she would never tell me the exact truth. He never wanted me to know her perspective or her point of view on anything for obvious reasons. She had nothing ever good to say about him, and he wanted to keep me from that as much as possible. But we can literally finish each other's sentences, and I can tell a story and she can finish my story, even though she didn't live it. She lived her own story, but it's the same. It was the same thing. And I still say, like, she is the greatest thing that ever came out of everything that I've had to go through. But when someone grooms you the way that he did me, I definitely know that he took advantage of my kindness. and my empathy and my ability to try to relate to other people on their level. And because I have always been so different and have always had such a strong sense of self that I've always tried to see people for, who I think they are and not what everyone else sees them as. Everyone else's opinion is just not that important. So, but I think the isolation started shortly after the first incident where, I knew for sure I couldn't tell my mom. I never came from a family that was violent or aggressive or showed any sort of, physical violence towards each other. So I had no skills whatsoever to be able to deal with that or process any of what was happening to me. And so I started to internalize everything. And I couldn't tell my friends, all these other strong, beautiful, tattooed women that I hang out with, and I didn't know what to do. And so I got sucked into this hole. And I lived there. And it became a prison. 2 seconds. Okay. I'll get it together in just a second.